Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm Seth Udinsky. Well, at the turn of the 18th century, a notorious dictator rose to power in Europe and for a brief time conquered most of the continent. This Frenchman was a brilliant military commander, and he proved to be the doom of the Central European Holy Roman Empire, which had lasted for over 1,000 years. He was also known for being famously short, which was something that would come to define his legacy. He was Napoleon Bonaparte, the Emperor of France. Now, the truth about Napoleon's height is that he was not actually terribly short. He stood at 5'7", certainly not tall for a man by today's standards, but rather average in the late 18th century. Napoleon was born in 1768 and rose to power in the ashes of the French Revolution, which, by the way, was perhaps intended to mimic the American Revolution, but completely failed to do so. Where the Revolution in America resulted in stability and freedom of self-governance, the French Revolution basically resulted in chaos. But Napoleon, a military genius, seized his opportunity in the chaos of the French Revolution and rose to power as part of a trifecta of French consuls, of which Napoleon himself was the head. Now, Napoleon was a controversial figure because he certainly did exhibit all the makings of a brutal military villain in his takeover of Europe. But in these early years, he did bring order to an otherwise chaotic nation. He established a rule of law, for example, that historians would remember as the Napoleonic Code, which has survived in some form or another to this day in France. But in 1804, as the most powerful man in France, he cemented his rule by coronating himself as the French emperor in the old Notre Dame Cathedral, not unlike the practices of the early medieval emperors such as Charlemagne. And Charlemagne, of course, crowned emperor of the Romans by Pope Leo back in 800, established the Holy Roman Empire, which was really more of a confederation of nation-states over the modern-day regions of Germany, parts of France, and northern Italy. Well, in 1806, Napoleon brought down this 1,000-year rule of the Holy Roman Empire on his quest for global domination. Now, throughout the height of his power, from 1803 to 1815, Napoleon conquered almost all of Western Europe. But in 1812, with a failed invasion of Russia, he began to lose the power he'd gained. And in 1814, he lost the throne, but then regained it. But in 1815, his reign rapidly declined as he lost a battle in Belgium against a combined force of British and Prussian soldiers. In the same year, he lost the throne for good and spent the final 6 years of his life in exile. Napoleon died in 1821. Thanks so much for joining me once again for A Moment in History.